Are skateboarders just a bunch of hoodlums with no regard for the law? Today we're going to dispel the 5 most common misconceptions that people have about skateboarding. Okay, so here's myth number 1. If you ride a skateboard, it probably means you're an immoral person who does drugs and has no respect for authority. Alright, so it's no secret that skateboarding and rebellion go hand in hand. Up until recently, most skateboarders wouldn't have even had a place to skate at all if they hadn't been willing to hop a few fences. However, if you look at the motive behind these acts of trespassing, the skateboarders themselves aren't really bad people out to cause property damage and make life more difficult for anybody else. The skateboarders out there are really just interested in getting their trick and getting out of there as fast as possible, leaving the place exactly how they found it. And if a security guard does end up getting involved, from what I've seen, most of the time the skaters will speak with them in a respectful manner and leave the premises if they're asked to do so. Okay, so what about how skateboarding relates to drug use? So since the legality of the recreational use of marijuana differs among states in the US, today I'm just going to be talking about the illegal use of it, primarily by kids under the age of 21. Now on that topic, yes, there is some truth to the suggestion that there is a little bit of a correlation between skateboarding and the use of marijuana, but I for one believe that the decision to take part in that activity is a personal one and not directly caused by one's participation in the sport of skateboarding. So are there kids under the age of 21 who skateboard and use marijuana? Yes. Are there kids under the age of 21 who don't skateboard and use marijuana? Yes, and I would even go as far as to say that the ratio of users to non-users in both categories is about the same. Now, most importantly, are there kids under the age of 21 who skateboard and don't use marijuana? And the answer to that question is a resounding yes, and those kids are unquestionably in the majority. Most of the kids at the skate park are there simply to enjoy the sport itself, and it's perfectly easy to make friends with those kids and avoid having to associate with the ones that aren't a positive influence. The simplest way I know how to put it is that you don't have to let the weakening association between skateboarding and doing illegal things define who you are and what you represent while you're on the board. In fact, a majority of what I've seen and heard skateboarders talking about recently has less to do with partying and causing trouble and more to do with progression, camaraderie, exercise, and just goofing around and having fun. Alright, so let's move on to myth number 2, and this one really gets under my skin sometimes. Good balance is a rare blessing given to a select few individuals chosen by the skate gods at birth. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone shy away from the idea of learning how to skateboard just because they think that they would be terrible at it due to the fact that they have terrible balance. Now, I can understand why it might not be as readily apparent to most people that balance is a quality that can be improved through training, just like strength and endurance, so I'll just go ahead and tell you right now that it is. If you do some research on the topic, you'll find that balance is a coordinated effort among many systems in your body, including your inner ear, your vision, your central nervous system, and your core and stabilizer muscles in your legs, ankles, and feet. And the good news is that most of those systems can be improved through training and practice. Now, there are a lot of great exercises that you can do to increase your ability to balance, but once you can ride a skateboard without falling off, doing so on a regular basis is easily one of the best and the most fun. Okay, so now myth number 3 is a two-parter, and it's that skateboarding is only for children and that skateboarding is only for boys. Now, I think that the first one is for the most part already dead. I know that there are still some places around the world where people will give you strange looks if you're a full-grown adult walking around carrying a skateboard, but now that skateboarding is literally an Olympic sport, I think it's safe to say that we can go ahead and ignore those people and just give them their space until they come around to the idea that skateboarding can be enjoyed by kids and by adults. The second one, however, is still widely believed by girls all over the world, so I just wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to let those girls know that it has been proven over and over again that girls can enjoy skateboarding even at a very high level, and if you need some examples, you should look up Letitia Buffoni and Lizzie Armanto for some inspiration. Now let's take a look at myth number 4, which very commonly plagues beginner skateboarders, and it's that skateboarding tricks start by moving your feet. Now, if you've ever watched a very beginner skateboarder try to perform an ollie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Usually they'll just stand on the board with their knees slightly bent and focus on trying to get the board to get into the air by snapping their feet upward very quickly, and that almost always results in the back wheels never leaving the ground and leaving the skateboarder getting more and more frustrated. Once it dawns on them that they need to first jump in the air to get their entire body off of the ground in order for their feet and their board to follow suit, it's usually very shortly after that that they'll land their first real ollie. The same thing goes for any trick that involves a body rotation. You're not going to have very much luck if you solely focus on getting the board to rotate just by spinning it with your feet. Instead, your first step needs to be winding up your shoulders and then forcefully rotating them in the direction that you want your board and body to spin, and then following that up by letting your feet and board follow along with how your shoulders are already rotating. Now let's talk about the fifth and final myth about skateboarding, which is that when a skateboarder falls down while they're trying a trick, it's considered a failure. I've already mentioned this in a previous video, but in many pursuits, and in skateboarding especially, the path to success is paved with failure. It's our way of learning what to do and what not to do in order to eventually succeed. In skateboarding in particular, almost every new trick starts out by feeling it out by falling while trying it first. Sometimes we'll get lucky and roll away just fine on the first try, but if that doesn't happen, we don't consider that a failure at all. What we usually end up seeing though is that once someone takes a good healthy slam while they're trying something new, it's almost always right after they're able to shake that off and give it another go that they're able to land the trick and roll away. For a more in-depth explanation on that topic, you should check out my video on how to overcome your fear of falling in skateboarding, which I'll put a link to right at the end of this video. Other than that, if any of the other topics piqued your interest and you want to discuss them further, I always encourage you to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe before you leave, and lastly, never stop improving.